Hey guys, I'm here today again. Today's actually 1/6. I think I labeled or said my last video was 1/6, but yesterday was actually 1/5. Um, I'd have thought before doing today's video that maybe I'll just start doing them about what I read each day, and that would give me a better idea of what to make the videos on. Right now I'm in Judges, and I just read the story of Samson actually. Around Judges 11 to 14, around that area. And I had kind of thought before I would just do videos about, what I was feeling at the time or random topics, but I might do that in the future some if I really think I need to. But I think for a little bit I'm going to try to just make videos on what I've read today, basically, and what I think it means, and the, implications or ideas or takeaways from that video. Or, sorry, not that video, that book. As I said, today I read the story of Samson, so we would be talking about Judges around, like I said, 11 to 14. I can't exactly remember. So yeah, starts out with a man in Zorah, I believe it was, named Manoah, who, this was at the time, I should have given the backstory. This was at the time the Philistines ruled over Israel, and it said that time was about 40 years, and then it goes to the man I was talking about before, Manoah, who lived in Zorah. He had a wife, and it doesn't mention her name actually, but it said he had a wife who was barren and could not bear children. Of course, we've seen many of them in the Bible many times so far since Genesis, that God uses barren women to produce, great people. So the angel of the Lord comes down, as it says, to his wife and says he will be a Nazirite, which I had to actually look up what that was in a video of my own, and it meant someone who was set apart for the Lord, basically. And part of that vow, the angel of the Lord said, was, that he must not have drink, touch anything that's unclean. And part of not touching anything that's unclean includes like dead animals and stuff like that. He must not shave his head or any part of like his hair, anything like that. I believe it also included facial hair. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe so. It just says like the hair on his head, basically. Angel of the Lord tells the woman all these things about him, and that he is to be a Nazirite. And then later on, she tells Manoah, and Manoah's, thinking about it as well. She tells him about it, so he's, thinking about it. And in the meantime, the angel of the Lord comes back again to her while they're in the fields. She goes to go grab him. I don't remember where it said he was, if he was also in the fields or in the house or something. She goes to grab him and says, here's the man that of the Lord that I was talking about yesterday. So I'm not crazy. See, here he is right here. And so the angel of the Lord speaks to Manoah and, basically tells him the same thing. And, Manoah asks also, there's something there that I really liked, was that Manoah, two things that I really liked that Manoah did. 1. When his wife mentioned the angel of the Lord that came to her the day before, it didn't say, and he didn't believe her, and he called her crazy, and he whatever, you know. He took her word for it, and, had faith in that. Secondly, thing that I really liked that he did, when the angel of the Lord came down and instructed him on the same things he did to his wife on what their son was to be and how he was to be, ceremonially clean, can't drink, can't touch dead animals and stuff. He also asked, how should I raise him? How should he be? Stuff like that. He wanted to be very specific with God and wanted more of God's instruction rather than just taking what God had given him and tried to do the rest on his own. No, he asked God about the rest. And then later on he said, who are you? What is your name? And God said, I cannot give you that. The book says it is too powerful, or in some translation, or is wonderful, I believe. Because at that time they didn't know it was the angel of the Lord. But they go out, and he goes back to his house and grabs like a sacrifice of a goat and grain, I believe. Puts it on the fire and puts it in front of him, does the sacrifice of the lamb or the goat, and the angel of the Lord goes into the fire and up to heaven. And it's at that point they know it was the angel of the Lord. And at that point, he bows down on the ground prostrate, both him and his wife, saying, we have seen God, we're gonna die because we saw him face to face. But the wife tells him, if we had wanted us to die or be dead, we would be by now. So, I guess that's the third thing that I really like that he did. Reverence for God, realizing he had just seen God's face and didn't deserve to. Man of good faith, character, and reverence for God. I liked that. And then it gets on to the story of Samson. It doesn't say really much about him growing up or anything like that. Just talks about his time when he had gotten a little bit older. He goes down to the Philistines and sees a woman, goes back to his parents, says, hey, I want to make this my wife, go get her for me. And it said his parents did not know, but this was the Lord's will, as he wanted I can't remember what the exact word was, a meeting with the Philistines, to set up a meeting with the Philistines, basically, for Samson in that way. But, yeah, that's basically what that was. Next up, they go down to, I can't remember exactly what city or what town it was. Timnah, I believe it was Timnah. And they, hold a ceremony or a feast, as it said young men do. The Philistines gave him 30 companions, or he had 30 companions of his own. I wasn't too sure about that part, where the 30 companions came from. And they hold a feast. And, and let me back up. I completely forgot the part about the lion. I believe the part about the lion happens before the feast. Sorry about that. What happens is, when he's taking his parents down to Timnah for the feast, I believe it is, that's why they're together, walking like along the road or something through the vineyards. Like a lion, he's about on his own a little bit, away from his parents, and a young lion comes up to him trying to attack him. And it says the Spirit of the Lord came upon him and gave him great strength, and he basically just tore the thing apart. destroy the lion like he could a young goat, is what it said. But he did not tell his parents what had happened. And some scholars say, him not telling his parents or confiding in his parents' judgment and what they might say about what happened with him and the lion was a sin because he didn't revere his parents in that way, which I didn't even think about when I read. In my mind, it was just like he just kind of didn't feel like telling them, or thought maybe he thought he didn't want to scare them. But I guess it could also be right that it was sin, that in a way he just didn't revere his parents or want to get knowledge from them about what had just happened with the lion. It also said later on, when he was passing by the lion, there was honeys and bees inside the dead body of the lion, and that he scoops out some of the honey from it to eat, and he also gives some of it to his parents, just honey out of a lion's dead body. And part of that, which I had no idea what that meant, like why it was talking about that, why there was honey in some dead animal's body. It was partly to show that he went against his, Nazarite pledge, basically, in that way. He touched a dead animal, and he wasn't supposed to. Showing that he, though set apart for the Lord, still sinned. But God still let him have his strength and forgave him. Which goes to show, regardless of who you are, how important you might be within the church or your community or head of your household or whatever, you might be the figure people look up to in the regard of, the church, or not the church, but like biblical matters, or in some way, shape, or form, they just look up to you. You will make mistakes. Even the people set apart for the Lord, like Samson, made mistakes. You will make mistakes. Just, gotta ask for forgiveness. Gotta try to stop from making the same mistake again. You just gotta realize everyone's prone to mistakes. I think that's kind of one of the highlights that I take out of this story so far is that, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna be prideful. You're gonna just do things you just won't even think about and will cause you to sin, basically. Because when he saw the lion, he didn't say, and he thought about it beforehand. He just said, oh, honey, let me go get some. You got to be on guard and need to be a bit more, slow and methodical to some of the things you do in life. I think is another takeaway from that part. Because I know we're not all Nazarites or something, or priests, or someone set apart for the Lord, but you should still be careful and think about what you're doing before you do it in a lot of situations and in everyday life. I guess I'll stop that story for there, because it's already getting pretty late in the video. But yeah, one of the main key things I wanted to talk about was Manoah, and how I liked the 3 things that he did, and how, Samson, though set apart for the Lord, still made mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Even with all the things God had given him, he still made mistakes. This was obviously before the time of Jesus too, so this Holy Spirit was not a thing. I am not entirely sure how the Spirit of God worked inside of Samson. I know several times it said the Spirit went inside of him, and it gave him like immense strength to fight his enemies and stuff, but it doesn't ever talk about, and then it left him. So I don't know how long the Spirit would reside within him before leaving. I assume it would leave after it talked about any certain fight that it joined him for, I suppose. It would leave. That's my guess anyway. So, this was before the time of the Spirit, so didn't have the Spirit within him guiding him, I guess you could say. But as a Nazarite, someone the Lord literally would go inside of him and give him strength, he still had, quite a bit of something to live up to and a standard to, abide by. So, just goes to show, be methodical about what you do. Have faith in the Lord, trust in Him, ask Him about everything, not just the things He talks about to you. Ask about everything, like Manoah did. How should I do this as well? As well as men who are married. If your wife, hopefully, is a woman of God as well, have faith in what she says. And God, what she says, God might be telling her. Though you are the head of the household and you're responsible for making decisions in that regard, God comes to everyone. The Holy Spirit is on everyone. So, just realize that everyone can have insight from God, not just you. That is something I struggled with as well. When first coming back to Him, was that I was way too prideful. I was like, I'm the only one in my friend group or whatever, or family or something that knows all this stuff and is insightful. And it's like, no, that's just being way too prideful and saying nobody else can be smart. That's just stupid. That's way too prideful and arrogant. You should remember to be humble. Just remember to be humble. It is very important, especially when you're dealing with people who aren't religious, or, obviously you should be humble to people who are religious as well. But if you aren't in front of people who aren't religious, they're going to say you're stuck up and mean, and why would they want to come to church with you? So you just got to remember to be humble, because you don't know who's watching. You never know who's watching, including God. So, just a couple of big reminders there, basically. So, yeah, that about does it for today's video. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to talk more about Samson's story, as well as what comes after a little bit, maybe. Because after his story ended with him being buried by the people, I had stopped there for the day. So, yeah. Anyone who sees this, hope you have a good day. Try to stay safe. Just keep the faith. And just try to stay humble.